Google has 3 billion monthly active users, billion with a B. That's a lot of people. Would you rather go it alone, or would you rather use their AI platforms to figure out where to place your ads and how to get the best results?
What if I told you that by leveraging first-party data, AI-driven ad platforms, and lead generation forms, you could drastically improve your results in graduate enrollment marketing? That's exactly what today's guest, Jeff Holeman, and his team at the University of Florida's Warrington College of Business did. Their revamped paid lead generation strategy led to a triple-digit increase in leads and a 50% drop in costs, which is practically unheard of, and who doesn't want that? So, Jeff, before we dive into the numbers, let's start with something fun. If you could create a business school course on any marketing trend, what would it be?
It's a great question, particularly working in a business school. But I would say maybe not so much a course on a specific marketing trend, but in response to a trend. Okay. My faculty colleagues may not like this answer, but if I was dean, here's what I do. As AI has become more prevalent and taking over repetitive, maybe more rudimentary tasks like data polls, data analysis, or creating social posts, optimizing ad spends, et cetera, which all of us are clearly doing using AI, I think the importance of soft skills becomes so much greater. And I was reading an article the other day where LinkedIn said collaborative problem solving is the top marketing skill of the year. And that really just set up a bell to me. And I thought, wow, business schools really need to take a page from the liberal arts and focus on helping students in developing those durable soft skills that are critical for business growth. And they just don't teach that. So, and as AI frees up our time and allows us to focus elsewhere, I think marketers need to know more about how to use those soft skills to be more strategic, to be more collaborative, and how to communicate better.
It's funny. I was actually thinking about the underrated skills in marketing earlier today, and your answer is much more mature than mine, because mine was the most underrated skill in higher ed marketing specifically is having a thick skin, like that resilience and, being able to take the opinions, because everyone has an opinion, but not everyone has a strategy, and like reminding ourselves that. But I like your answer a heck of a lot better, Jeff. And we talk a lot about soft skills, but I think we should start talking about skills like that as power skills, because they're really the most critical, the most important one. And soft puts it too lightly in a way in terms of how critical they are. Yeah.
Yep.
So you and your team at Warrington made significant changes to your lead gen strategy. Can you walk us through what prompted that shift? What made you look at it?
Sure. Well, my position at the Warrington College of Business was newly created when I started about 2 years ago. So there hadn't been someone really looking at things from this angle. Mm-hmm. And so I started really by taking a strategic look at what we were doing and trying to ascertain, performance success. To me, that was mission number one. And so I could figure out, where do we need to go from here? And the college had been investing in enrollment marketing for a few years, but there really has not been the focus or I think even support to dive into analyzing that performance, looking at return on spend, and optimizing our efforts up and down the enrollment funnel. Everything was really very top of the funnel oriented. And I wanted to change that. I saw opportunities for improvement across the board, but mostly I'd say it just seemed like we weren't being as strategic as we could be, Allison. My observations were a little bit that felt like we were doing advertising for advertising's sake in some respects. And there was no clear strategy or understanding of how our efforts were making an impact. And so as I dug deeper into this, that's when I began to see, wow, there's so much more opportunity for us to improve this performance and to lean into changes that are actually driving success in other industries.
Well, a triple-digit increase in leads is no joke. Combine that with the 50% drop in costs, and it's nothing short of a massive improvement, right, to what was being done before. So I have to understand, tell us about the key elements of the new strategy that you think drove the success. Like, what did you uncover when you were diving into that performance evaluation?
Sure. And really, super proud of our team. I have to brag a little bit and say, our efforts, we're 200% up in lead quantity year to date this year alone. Wow. And that was on top of 150%.
That increase.
Yeah. And 150% increase last year, fiscal year end to date. So it just, there's been so much good work that went into that. And thinking about it, I kind of put as four critical success factors come to mind, and based on the analysis of what we did and what we saw. The first thing I'd say was gaining an understanding of how AI powered marketing works and how it's different. I think as marketers, it's our role to understand the changes, especially in this era of AI powered marketing. And I think that requires that you understand and lean into predictive analytics and targeting that now exists that didn't exist even just a few years ago. So as marketers, leaders, in particular, we have to know how that works, how we move from A/B testing to real-time optimization and advertising, to transition from the old school lookalike audiences to more predictive audiences, and transitioning from using cookies, which we know are being phased out, to using signals and conversion APIs. And so you have to understand all those things and educate yourself a little bit, and then figure out, okay, well, what does that mean to make it work? How is that going to drive success? The second success factor, which was really a huge lift for us, was collecting and utilizing our first party data. Prior to these changes, we weren't using our own data. So that was akin to blanketing the ad platforms with ads and hoping we were going to find the right audience. But now we're regularly feeding our enrollment candidate data, be it demographics or the activity, the preferences, the path to enrollment, et cetera. And we put that into our ad platforms. Google and LinkedIn in particular for us have driven the most improvements. For Google, they have what's called demand generation, demand gen for short, and performance max or PMax. Some of your listeners may have heard of that. And that really allows you to get better targeting, better optimization, and ultimately increase lead quantity at a better cost. And that has been that case for us. We're able to determine where to focus our efforts within Google's ad network across so many different products that they have. So, Allison, think of it like this. Google has 3 billion monthly active users, billion with a B. That's a lot of people. Would you rather go it alone, or would you rather use their AI platforms to figure out where to place your ads and how to get the best results?
So talk to me more about the first party data, because it's sounding to me like what you're doing is finding, instead of lookalike audiences of the past, behavior like audiences. Is that true?
Yes, that's a big part of it. And that's, I think, what's really changed with AI powered marketing today. And it really is that shift from just finding the audience that looks just like your audience. You're not just finding that person who has a similar demographic. Instead, you're taking this data and you feed it into the ad platform. And then what they do is they look for not just someone who has the same general demographics as Allison, they're looking for someone that does what Allison does. So they're going to find the individuals who are most likely to be interested in you. And so it happens so much more instantaneous now. If you put that data in there, it can immediately scan the data across their ad platforms and hone in on the people who have more common characteristics. And by doing that, we saw the biggest lift at that point. And I think when we really started using that predictive analytics, within the first 6 months, we actually saw a 300% increase in leads just in that short time period by doing that alone.
And are we talking, we're talking mostly about Google's ad platform, or also others like Meta perhaps, or are we really focused on
Yeah,
Google?
it's Meta and LinkedIn are a big part of it
Okay.
as well. And so, actually, in the social platforms, I think you can have even greater success in finding those individuals because there's so much more user data that exists within those platforms. And so, that has been a big part of our success. More so for us with LinkedIn. We saw a lot of success with Meta initially, but it's kind of tapered off quite a bit. And I don't know how much of that is we're primarily marketing graduate programs, and that's really where our revenue is. And the undergraduates come in through the university admissions process, so we don't have to market them as a college. And I think the graduate audience really aligns a little bit better in most of our programs with LinkedIn.
It's interesting because I do think part of the challenge in finding the grad students is they're not necessarily raising their hand saying, "Oh, I'm thinking about going to grad school," right? There's not a perfect definition for who that is, so it makes sense to me to try to find them based on behavior and not just simply demographics, like how old you are or where you're located, because a lot of times you just how do you know someone's ready for a career change? There's no one puts on their LinkedIn profile career changer, right?
Yeah, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, and that's probably the big difference in the results for us. Is because, as I mentioned previously, we were just advertising generally across the board, so we were only really looking for those people who were raising their hand and saying, "I'm interested in going to grad school." So instead of waiting for them to declare that interest, we're actually going out and finding the people who are most likely to convert to become a lead, and they may not quite be ready, but we're going to plant that seed and get them into the funnel.
One of the hesitations I think people have about relying on the platform and that platform's AI to sort of make those decisions is it can feel like less human oversight, right? Because it's kind of automatically making those decisions in real time, like you were describing, which has efficiency and we're getting to the right things faster, the right decisions, but there's a lack of can feel like there's a lack of human oversight. How do you balance that?
I like to look at it as it's just part of our world now. That's probably another great business school course that should be mandatory.
Yeah.
Is how do you balance automation with human oversight? I think in many ways, fortunately for us, having that partner of an ad agency who's really collaborating with us, that's been most helpful in that automation because they're bearing the brunt of it. But even so, it's my role as the marketing leader to regularly review that data. And I'm constantly looking at it to understand trends, make recommendations about, where do we need to pivot and how? And then I lean on them to say, I don't see the results that I want to see
Mhm.
right there. The costs seem real high in that particular campaign for that program. We have about 25 different programs that we're marketing at any given time. And so we have different ones running. So look in there constantly. And that's really the human part. You don't get to just let go and say, let automation, let AI take over. There's no autopilot in marketing, I like to say. You can't turn the engine on and expect the plane to take off, fly, and land by itself. You got to pay attention to the data on the screens and you got to respond to the turbulence. And so it's just become even more important to understand what data is coming back at you and how to respond to it.
We're just going to keep adding on to those courses people should take and the skills because
Yep.
the analytical aspect of it is becoming more and more critical in what we do. So as if it wasn't enough to have uncovered all of this lead generation strategy and revamp everything, and you've had great success there, you also built a lead engagement scoring model to help the admissions team focus on the best candidates. Talk to me about that process.
Yeah. With so many leads coming in, we knew we needed to do something to provide some kind of system so our colleagues knew who the best candidates were so they could pursue them in their outreach. And I started by partnering with the Associate Dean of Master's Programs who oversees the admissions teams. And we wanted to put in place, a lead engagement scoring model to start, and as well as a dashboard that allows the admissions staff to see who are those most engaged leads. I tell you, we're also very fortunate to have an incredibly talented MarTech manager on our team. And if you're a marketing leader and you don't have a MarTech guru on your staff, then I would prioritize that need to guide your success. And no poaching our team member, please.
Everyone's
um,
on your website right
I know.
now.
No, leave her. I won't tell you who that person's name is. In all seriousness, so we're a Salesforce campus, and fortunately, within our digital marketing platform, there's a lead engagement scoring model that's built right in, and we chose to use that because it was already in the system and it captures the activity of all of our leads via all digital tactics. So every time they partake in some digital tactic from the starting to become a lead all the way through, it captures that activity and the activity forms the foundation of the engagement score. So working with the head of admissions to understand the potential impact in the need there, working with the MarTech and CRM administrators, and then looking at the platform itself and what we could do with the tool we already had, that really made the difference for us.
It always helps if we can leverage something that you are already
Yeah.
doing or you already have. What were some of those engagement points or those activities that lead to a high score? What did you find that's valuable?
Sure. So leads are scored in three categories. We have low, average, and hot. And the more activity the lead takes, of course, the higher the score because it's based on engagement. The activities that drive the highest score are tied to our most important conversions. So we give points based on the different things that they actually do. So registering and attending an information session, extremely important for us. So those have very high scores. Scheduling a call with an admissions representative. We want to make that voice-to-voice connection between a lead and our admissions teams. Clicking on links and emails, little things like that. So taking those steps overall increases the engagement score and because it shows a higher level of intent as well.
And I have to imagine it's good information because what they click on or what they sign up for, what that content is would be good intelligence for an admissions counselor as well. So the score, but also what the activities are and what they're engaging with, I would have to imagine is helpful.
Yeah, it is definitely. I think the higher that score, the more engaged the lead is, and it's the hot lead, as we call it, that's got a score of 100 or more, whereas the low engaged lead is under 50. So that's the way the numbers work in our system. And the passive leads are really those ones that I'd say probably only took that initial step to become a lead, but didn't take any further action. And so what that means for an admissions staff person is they can look really quickly and say, I don't want to spend my time with that person. I've got limited hours a day and I've got so many leads I need to reach out to. Let me just focus on the ones in this category right here.
Yeah, and that could even inform the communications that get triggered, of course, in the communications piece of the CRM. Well, what if someone doesn't have a built-in option? What advice would you give them about how to build a simple and effective lead scoring system? Because I think this is true no matter where you are. We have limited time, right? We have limited resources. Where do we focus that? And lead scoring is something that could be really helpful. So what's maybe even just a simple approach someone could take if they don't have some of those tools at their fingertips?
The first thing I'd say is see if you do, because you may be surprised that you do. So first, I'd say don't assume, because it might actually exist. If it's in there, then that's great. If you don't have that system in place and you have to build something from scratch, I think you have to sit down and you have to partner with a variety of people. You have to find, if you're going to do engagement scoring, it's going to be really based on what kind of data you have that shows that leads are actively using your marketing channels. What data do you have at your disposal? So find out what can you track, what can you measure in terms of how your leads are engaging on your website? How are they engaging with your advertising? How are they engaging in social with your email campaign? So take that data and then assign a level of importance. Figure out what's the most important factors. What are those things that show the highest level of intent? What's most important to you? Share that with your admissions team members as well. Talk through with them about what matters to you. What are you seeing as most important in terms of these engagement factors? And then come up with a proposed approach together. And, I think you do have to assign some kind of rubric. You got to create a rubric and assign some numbers to it to say these are the most important things. I think the numbers that you use probably don't have to be, they're not as important. I think it's the prioritization is more important than anything. And try to keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. If you had to do it by yourself, if you start getting an equation that's too complex, you're probably going to make it difficult to manage down the road.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's what gets people to stop, right? It feels too complex. There's too many things that I could look at, but find out what matters. It's almost easier on the undergraduate side because we know the combos of the big things that matter, right? A visit to campus, filing the federal financial aid form. We know what that mix of engagement things are, and it's a little bit muddier on the graduate side, but those are some really, really great ideas. I want to end by looping back to the lead gen because you guys have done such a great job with really transforming your lead gen and engagement strategies. Where should someone start on that front in terms of evaluating how they're doing it now and finding some of those opportunities like you were able to?
I think first it starts with education. If you can take a course, earn a certificate in modern digital marketing. Listen to podcasts, reach out to colleges or universities who are actually doing this already. Lean on your agency as well. If they aren't doing this or aren't talking about it, then hold them accountable. but also be open to learning. You kind of have to try things and you may make some mistakes, and that's okay, but you have to be willing to be bold and try something different. And there's a lot of things that you can learn from and do differently.
What does your RFI form that collects these leads look like, by the way, Jeff? That's always a hot topic. I think we've got to address that quick before we wrap up.
It's pretty simple. It is name, email, program of interest, and we are currently A/B testing require phone number, not require phone number.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I'd be really interested to see those results. So everyone keep an eye out on Jeff's LinkedIn because I know I'm probably not alone. You got to share with us. I recently had Purdue Business School on, and they have an interesting question that gets at what level of interest the student has in the program. So they just add that they don't do phone number. So they have the name, the email, the program of interest, which you sometimes need and sometimes don't. If it's a landing page that's specific to a program, you maybe don't even need to ask that one, right? They have a really cool way of figuring out what their interest level is. And then that I bet could help with lead scoring and of course helps make the most relevant communications possible. All right, last question, because you've worked at some really great institutions. What's one major misconception about paid lead gen in higher ed that you wish more people understood?
That it's expensive and you need a really large budget to make this work.
Yeah.
And I can give you an example. We recently launched a campaign for our Doctor of Business Administration program, which is a sort of a sister to a PhD, but someone who's not looking to go down a typical tenure track research faculty, but someone who wants to work in the academic space and get a doctorate. So that's a very niche program, but it also a very profitable program for us. So we wanted to try out marketing it. There's not a lot of them. So we tried with a minimal investment, actually only $20,000 over a 4-month period. And we increased applications by 30% year over year in that time period when it was running. And the cost per lead and just the leads itself, percentage wise, in comparison to our other campaigns, actually were doing so much better than traditional
Well,
things like
that's
MBA
shocking.
programs. Yes, it didn't
Well,
cost a lot of money.
Well, maybe it has to do somewhat with it's a bit less competitive because there aren't as many. I don't, but that's amazing because it's so niche. You would expect it to have a really high cost per lead.
Yeah.
All
And you don't have to spend a lot of money sometimes. And even some of our more successful campaigns that we have for various degrees, we don't spend huge amounts of money. I mean, collectively, when you put all the dollars together over the course of a year, yes, you're going to have to, but you don't need to have millions of dollars. And so if you're a small, college within a university, or you're a small college or university standalone, you don't have to have the millions and millions to make this work. But start small and invest smart and see where your results are, and then show the results and make your case for why you can bring more results and you can drive more enrollment.
Well, let's close out on that very actionable insight. Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your expertise with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Allison. It was a pleasure to be on with you.
So for listeners who are looking to improve their enrollment marketing performance, start by taking a look at your data, right? Take Jeff's advice. And if you found today's conversation helpful, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with a colleague. And if your school has a creative enrollment marketing success story, we'd love to hear about it. Reach out to me. Until next time, thanks for listening to The Application.